Excited for this session. Welcome everyone here in this live stream. Welcome everyone to and honor to have everyone here as guests. So this session is all about network state, pop-up city, SEZs. So we will define all terms going around, but this session is hosted by Samuel and myself. We're super excited. Again, I think this is the second main session that we're doing. A lot of people were kind of like saying, okay, let's come back, let's do it again, and with other, let's say, honorable guests. And I think like this time we kind of like nailed it. It's super excited to have you guys. Do we want a quick start a round of intros before we're giving a context to this live video space? Who wanna start?
Listen, I'll start because it's probably the easiest. Anyone who tuned into the last space that me and Francesco did will probably remember me. But that, as Francesco said, that was a really cool space, and it was great fun. So, backed by popular demand, here we are, a part of a series of live streams and discussions on network states and everything related to that. So yeah, as you said, we could do like a quick round of intros, and maybe if people say who they are and then briefly describe the project they're working on. Yeah, that would be great. I don't know who to start with. Let's go with who's at my right. So that's Veronica.
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Veronica. I am helping build Zuitzerland, which is a permanent Zuzelu network state project in Switzerland. We're starting with a pop-up city in May to try to define how, why, what, where, who, so that we can actually move forward and build a permanent hub project. We think that Switzerland has 700-year history of decentralized governance, has direct pathways for actually engaging, even for a project like ours. There are a lot of people already within Switzerland and projects that are keen. So we think we need to have a bunker node of the global network state. So that's what I'm working on. Really happy to be here and discuss this with you all.
Awesome, thanks. I guess Tim?
Everyone, it is so wonderful to be here. I'm Timur. I'm one of the co-founders of Edge City. We talk about ourselves as building a society incubator. So the idea is to create spaces where we can gather people working at the frontiers of tech science and society, and really create containers for experimentation and innovation, and try to really build things and incubate things. So some of the things that we've already helped to build are a lot of different identity products, a lot of different network society tools. We incubated, along with Juan, a bunch of other great folks, the Crecimiento movement, which I'm really excited to hear more about from Simon. And we're working on a couple of permanent hubs around the world as well, including one called Esmeralda in California. So yeah, really excited for the discussion and to learn more from my esteemed peers here. And I'll ping it to Sun.
Thanks, Timo. So my name is Sun, and I'm working on The Mu, one of the founders of the project. What we do is we focus on building. Basically, we focus mainly on like finding product market fit for blockchain, and that's why we decided to go to places like developing regions where there's actually use case of blockchain, using blockchain as the like the neutral infrastructure for finance, for trust, for so many other things. And last year we were lucky that our second stop of the move, we actually went to Argentina. We did the Mu bonus, and that's when the whole Crecimiento thing started hyped. And we're super happy that like all the community members from the Mu bonus community were like the core contributors and pushing this amazing project, Crecimiento. And right now, for anyone who's listening, and if you guys like have no plans for the next 2 weeks, feel free to go to Argentina right now. I think there's still things happening over there. So, and because of this and another 2 projects we've done in Africa, Popup City projects in Africa, we've been invited to work in and to present blockchain in the World Expo for people who are outside Asia. Much more familiar name is World's Fair. It's literally like one of the largest event in the world, and we are presenting. And hopefully, we can convince more nations around the world to come and learn and be part of this pop-up city. And yeah, we are trying to build like a few permanent hubs. We are considering of Japan, because the World Expo is happening in Japan, and we're working with a lot of like local government, local like enterprises, local community to do this founder residency, sort of like what Crecimiento is doing, but a little bit of, we provide accommodation and other things. So it's quite interesting project. So overall, that's what we're working on right now, mainly focused in Japan. Yep.
You definitely want us
Super.
to, we definitely need to understand where the Mu, like the name is coming from. It's probably like the only kind of like network city that we don't know. But Simon, like I think like you missed the intro. I think you're kind of famous around Network State, but you want to quickly introduce yourself for the people that doesn't know you.
No, 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 not famous at all. But thank you. Thanks. I mean, it's so cool to be here with all of you. A lot of amazing projects. Basically, Crecimiento is a movement that's trying to transform Argentina into sort of like the crypto capital of the world. We have the potential in the sense of there are many problems that crypto natively fixes. There is people who actually use crypto, like 25% of the population use it on a monthly basis. And we're building a lot on the regulatory support to actually have that, not only top to bottom support, but bottom to top support. No, it's like the perfect ecosystem. And obviously, all the special economic zone conversations really triggers here, because it's maybe what we need to make all that happen. And we're working in that direction. We're gonna get into more detail later. But as Sun was saying, we are currently running a pop-up city. We're getting to the detail of what that means later. And we have more than 1,700 or 800 attendees, or people who registered to attend so far. Tomorrow we're doing the regulation day, like bringing all the regulators in Argentina with a few surprises coming. And we're really doing I believe we're trying to do the best thing that we can to traction the ecosystem and build in that direction. So everybody who's listening, obviously more than welcome to knock on our door and come to the pop-up that we're building, full of builders, full of startups. And yeah, we're there in Buenos Aires.
And now,
That's
go for it, go for it.
go ahead.
No, I just want to say Crecimiento. I mean, specifically, like, I've been following like the movement, but not just Crecimiento. I mean, HCD back in Dev Connect was definitely like crazy. All the Chamai for a month were like, and now also like you guys are also running the Cape Town kind of like narrative. So that's actually like super exciting. And Veronica, I mean, I'm mostly like speaking with Punkar, and with Switzerland is definitely like the hub of innovation. And I think. And I think like we miss like the this Simon now always like in the room here from Consensus. You want to quickly introduce yourself, Simon? I think everybody saw you from the stream before, but here for freshening up like the years of everyone.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so I've working in Consensus now about 3 years. So I'm leading the network state team in Consensus, building the Consensus network state, which is incredibly ambitious and visionary project. And we're really eager to talk to everyone who's building pop-up cities, network states, working with special economic zones, and collaboratively working to build the next 10 years of Ethereum. So I'm super excited to have this space and to talk through everything. Even in the past 10 minutes, everything that's been mentioned through all of the introductions are just like so vast and expansive. I hardly know where to start. So it's an incredibly exciting space. It's a relatively new space, and already there's been a ton of innovations and new things that have emerged. So it makes me incredibly bullish for the next 10 years. Yeah, so that's me. That's where I'm at. I think a lot of people are probably, though, because the space is so new, I think there's still a lot of confusion about like what is a network state, what is a pop-up village and a pop-up city, and how does it relate to special economic zones? And probably people listening to this are probably wondering like, how is it relevant to me? And so like that's something that I'm eager to kind of like evangelize how exciting this space is and what's going on and what all of the various projects and teams are doing. So yeah. What about you guys? Where do you think, if you were to describe your project, how would you describe it in terms of like what maybe what phrase describes it best, whether it's a network city or network state, a network, or pop-up city, and like what is like the closest to describing your project the best, and how would you say it's like relevant to people who are listening to the show? I don't know who wants to go first.
I can jump if you want. Basically, I think the word that describes us the best is a movement, because it's not only pushed by us as Crecimiento, it is actually built by the community all around us. And that's the coolest part, probably, that you see the calendar filling up with events that people are organizing that actually add value. But then within Crecimiento as a movement, we have Aleph, and Aleph, it is a pop-up city itself. And why are these relevant, or why do can people actually feel related to this? I think because of the industry that we're in, and because of the way that sort of like work is developed in the last few years after COVID, there's a lot of nomads. There's a lot of people who travel around the world, who belong somewhere and don't really belong anywhere anymore. And is that there's a very human thing that is the sense of belonging to a community, no? And many people jumped into the nomad life, and they were like, yo, this is actually so cool. I'm meeting people all around the world, and I'm connecting with this and that. But suddenly you still get the feeling of, hey, I want to go back to where I belong. And then where do I belong? Because I travel back to my country, and maybe the culture doesn't really represent me anymore as it did in the past. No, I'm a little bit of a mix of many other cultures that I'm connected in different, they're all spread out around the world. And in my opinion, the beauty around pop-up cities is you have a chance to build a space to live together with people who actually share this new culture and share it, and you actually bring quite a bit of stuff to it, in the sense of you come with your background to a different place where this city is being structured, and you face local problems and challenges, but you face them from a point of view that is, this is what I've learned in the past from my culture. So suddenly there's like sort of like a pollination thing, with like where like you're bringing your solutions to new challenges, and you're learning from those challenges, you're learning from the local ecosystem, and then you're taking those solutions and new challenges somewhere else. So it creates this beauty of that, it actually fosters creation and fosters building. And when it comes to Aleph particularly, you get a lot of builders getting inspired all the time in two directions, by actual problems in Argentina that you can fix through native crypto solutions, and a lot of inspiration of people from more than 30 countries, and actually more than 11,000 people in total so far, who are actually coming to Argentina and being like, yo, we did this in another country and it worked this way. And it's ideal if you're a builder, if you want to build something new.
Yeah, also this fact about permissionless innovation, the fact that you're getting inspired by different backgrounds, and the verticals are different. And I think also you're not pressed by time, right? Sometimes hackathon is a 48 hours time, and you don't really have time to actually like how do you say, like deeping down some skills, going to different workshops, even like do something completely different than just these specific workshops. And I think like Papa City is the sweet spot. It's not just the nomad side, but it's also like deeping down and concentrating on building relationship too, because all these people you're always meeting again. And I saw that since Edge City, right? Like that I'm meeting much more people, and I see like people are coming back, and I feel like it's kind of like this hacker house concept on much steroids, right? Where you actually meet people, you're nurturing relationships, and is a very stronger value prop that I think people are looking forward to, because you're also combined with kind of like the ecosystem, the relationship side.
I also want to bring up, other than the deep connections we build because of this long-term hacker house or long-term like pop city, is that we actually get a chance to actually sit down and learn about the problem. Because one thing in blockchain is that we always hop from one place to another, like we stay there for like a few days and just go into conferences and expand your carbon footprint. But I think what's beautiful is like when I was there in Argentina last year, I literally spent around like 3-4 months in Argentina doing the first move on us and doing the first pop-up city Aleph. And then I also spent around 2 to 3 months approximately in, not 3 months, but 2 months approximately in Africa last year, like living with African builders, with the community leaders over there. And then we also did like 2 pop-up cities in Thailand, Chiang Mai. We also like learned about local challenges and everything. So having this like opportunity to actually live, eat, hang out, and literally like spending with local communities 24/7, you can actually have a much much wholesome overview of what the challenge are they facing and what is the actual friction. Like looking from the high level perspective, all the problems look the same. It's payment problem, it's decentralized finance, it's stablecoin problem. But in reality, like what's the reason behind the problem? It's actually something that sometimes researchers, sometimes like professors, like a lot of people like in universities to research literally for years and years and trying to understand the scope of the problem. And if we are actually considering to build solutions and bring change and innovation, we need to understand that. And I think that's also something being lacking in blockchain. Like we are too focused on the quick solution or hype, but forgetting about if you actually want to change the real world, like like building application is much 10 times much more difficult than building like a technical breakthrough infrastructure, because you're for infrastructure you're just dealing with technical problem. But if you're building an application layer, you're literally like dealing the human layer, the like the politics, the culture. There's so many things, and it's, to be very honest, like such a pain in the ass. But I think that's also the beautiful part. That's actually where the that's why we respect, we embrace all those innovators, those people who push the humanity forward. And because because it really matters and because it really changes. So I think that's what this kind of long-term co-living experience actually bring, and that's, yeah,
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Yeah, that's what has me so excited about pop-up villages and then how they're related to network states, because it's really where the rubber hits the road and where crypto comes to real life, and actually where you come out with ideas that actually start making a difference in people's everyday lives. But I mean, on that note, do you think that maybe some of the people listening are thinking that maybe they have the assumption that it's like just for crypto nomads, and it's just for like digital nomads, and maybe they're the only people who can actually come to these pop-up villages? Or is it more accessible than that? What are your thoughts?
I can touch on that. So something we think a lot about at Edge City is how we can get these core ideas that we've developed primarily in the blockchain space and get them out to a wider variety of people. So since this all kind of kicked off with Zuitzerland about 2 years ago, we've been pushing pretty hard to make sure that there's other topics being discussed at these events. There's AI, health, biotech, etc. And then when Edge City emerged after Zuitzerland decentralized, we kind of continued that, but also made sure that it's multi-generational. So we want to really make sure that there's like kids around and elders, because we feel like if you're trying to actually meaningfully build a better future, you should have the people around that have either the wisdom to impart on that process or will be the ones who are inheriting it. And I think the core thing that pop-up villages and eventually, network cities and network states can do is actually meaningfully improve the aspects of society, like education, like the way that we live together. And obviously the technology that's developed there is a core part of that, but it should kind of serve the means, not be, it should be a means towards the end, not be an end in itself. So I think for me, the exciting thing about like the whole thesis behind starting with pop-up villages and cities is that they are essentially like the bootstrapping step towards this broader notion of network societies or network states. I think this was the initial insight that Vitalik had when starting Zuitzerland, which was there's so many people talking about network states, and Balaji's book of the same name really revitalized this movement. But really, these ideas are decades old, right? They were just kind of masterfully communicated in that book. So many people talking about these concepts, but no one's actually doing anything. And it's interesting when we talk to teams who are building products for network states, and we're like, okay, this sounds amazing, but who are you actually building for? Like, what is the, you know? And so we see this pop-up city movement, and we see our role in trying to encourage more people to do this by open sourcing our learnings and creating playbooks as a way to build that necessary kind of middle step. It was like, let's actually get people collaborating together in spaces and physical spaces, and then start to grow that around the world so that there is even something to build for, you know? I don't know if that's like a spicy take or a slightly hot take, but I think that's just the reality of where we're at. I'm curious,
I
like
like
Veronica,
Yeah, I'd love
what's your take?
to. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to jump in, and thank you, Timur, also for bringing up like kind of the theoretical ancestry, because with, I think the question began with what is a network state versus pop-up city, and I think emphasizing state. Whenever people ask me this, I'll always talk about, okay, the state side or sovereignty side. Some projects have that ambition. Not every project has it. Probably most broad. We have a bunch of intentional communities around the world that are now starting to do things, and there's a lot of overlap with Web3. But as Timur mentioned, right, with the original Zuitzerland experiment, it was scaling up hacker houses and conferences. It came from the crypto city, and then Balaji articulated network state with this level of sovereignty. So I think it is worth always, I always try to mention that not every project is looking for sovereignty, but if you are talking about state, there are some projects, maybe industries that especially need it, and people that need it in particular that want to have that level of, or at least a pathway towards sovereignty. It's why Switzerland, for example, is interesting to me, and other countries that I've been visiting pop-ups in have been less interesting in the long term. I also wanted to mention that I think pop-up cities also were always meant to be a means and never an end. And I've gone maybe the backwards direction, where I've experienced now crypto conferences after pop-ups, and this network state experiment world. Since it all came from actually like a rationality meetup that then I came to Zuitzerland, and this all snowballed from it. And I think conferences are the same. Like all of these are meant to be gatherings, whether they're shorter or longer, for something larger. And I think where conferences fell into, I really fear and see already, pop-ups can quickly, like the default outcome is just doing something similar, just a little bit scaled up, because it's also co-living, it's also more serendipitous moments. We're spending time with people that we're working with and we like all those things are great. So the default outcome is not so bad, but I think it's missing out on this potential. And then the other thing I really wanted to mention, as San and Timur and Simon, as everyone's talking about connecting with real world needs, I think it goes both ways, where it's not only like this huge value for people that are building in Web3 or trying to build for real use cases. You have ephemeral pop-ups and permanent, where there are people willing, or they have no choice, they're going to use whatever tech you're saying this is where your community is, so now they're using that tech. Now you have adoption, now you can test things and build at accelerated rates. But on the flip side, there are so many communities and people that are actually really in need of the tools that we are building, or the tools that we could build, that we have the tech for, that don't yet exist, but they don't even know that there are people that are willing to build these tools, that could build the tools if they're connected. So I think it's an interesting moment, both with like this momentum of a lot of the Web3, and then these other adjacent spaces that are starting to get into this pop-up network movements space. But there's also a lot of groups and individuals around the world that I think that clearly have needs that we can, as we build not just the temporary pop-ups, but ideally like permanent city nodes around the world. And then we have pop-ups that are bringing in, like everyone from the other cities to one at certain points of time or something like that. Like I think it'll continue to be means. It should just never be the end. Then, you can imagine also just really linking even a lot more strongly with the local groups, and ideally they're the main population of the local groups. And we are seeing that with some permanent projects. I do think, Simone, I haven't had the chance, unfortunately, to visit yet, but my understanding is it is also very, very locally connected, and it provides a really shining example for a lot of the rest of us as we're building these projects. I forget exactly, Timur, what you were asking me when you threw it over, but I already had like those 3 points bursting. So
But some of the things that you guys mentioned, so I just want to call out. So like Timur, you mentioned this idea of like developing these playbooks that you can share. So, and then Veronica, I think Zuitzerland is arguably pioneering the whole idea of not just a pop-up village, but like a permanent residency that people can come to. And like when you put those ideas together, you can see how you can have this proliferation of community groups, not necessarily pop-up villages, not necessarily network states or any of the other nomenclature we have, but just community groups that are empowered by the technologies that we build. And it, as a means to the end, I'm wondering, like, what do you think that end actually looks like? How many of these global collective, but local community groups do you see using the kind of tools that you develop? And do you think that they will be connected to each other through Web3? What does that future look like?
I'm pretty excited about this in particular. I think it's a high level. The way I see kind of broadly society moving is just a broad decentralization kind of across the board, both politically, democratically, kind of people focusing more on what we call like cosmolocalism. So having the hyper-local focus of the community that you live with, it could be the digital community that you spend time with, but also with a global, a cosmic scale. And so I think that's like a broad shift that's happening. And all of that should be and will be built on open rails and on Web3 rails, which I'm extremely excited about. I think something we think a lot about is the ideas of plurality and DIAC, which I won't go too far into, but the TLDR there is basically creating a world where people have much more agency and much more say over the environments that they live in, and then fostering the development of technology that favors defense rather than offense. This is an idea from Vitalik, and we just launched a grant program with him to support initiatives in that realm. So if anyone's building anything DIAC related, please reach out. But broadly, the high level thing is, I think we're just going to see much more agentic kind of both local and global communities. And this is broadly like a positive shift for the world. And the technology that we develop will allow for that to happen, so that all of these communities, the people on this call, all of the other ones that have been inspired and are starting to build, will be interconnected and interdependent, right? We will share, I will be connected, Edge City will be connected to Zuitzerland through the people that are in both communities, right? They will be the central hubs of that interconnection. Same with the Mu, same with Crecimiento. And I think that's actually quite a beautiful future to build towards, where we feel ourselves part of multiple of these. Probably we have a core one, but we have the connection, kind of the web of trust that extends between all of these and all of the other ones that are coming.
Ideally, sorry, just very shortly, I just was going to say, like, I completely agree. This ideal decentralized future that I don't know how much is just like optimism bias. I'm like, yes, that is where we're moving. But I think the tool piece, like, ideally, it's not even like I mean, not even ideally, like, it can't just be one platform. It can't just be like one project or one people. Like, it should just be tools. I love in Make Ethereum Cypherpunk, again, a blog from Vitalik. Also, he wrote, build tools, not empires. And so we have a bunch of stickers that I've been just like passing out everywhere I go. Like, let's just have tools. But I think that is the future we're moving towards. And especially as we have this very, like, we talk about the cosmolocalism idea, these very localized needs and communities where the tools are based there, then you have like certain percentage of communities are using certain tools that are related to, I don't know, like co-op in farming, and you're using like supply chains with the blockchain. Like, I don't know, like, there's gonna be very specific use cases that should be very locally specific to those groups, and then they're shared across the world. And that's where that Cosmo part comes in, because we have, the world computer that everything can run on, but then tools are very specific and ideally ultimate customizability and optionality to each community or collective, and then the individual too. So everyone's owning their own data. They're using the tools to act in the world in this beautiful decentralized agentic future.
If I may add something in there, because I love when we talk about like tooling and stuff for like on-chain societies. And then actually a huge shout out to Radio, who did the Denver hackathon around building solutions in this direction. But I love to like maybe like shift the focus in there a little bit, because maybe like tooling is a great way of thinking about it. But I would rather go back to the problems that we're actually fixing, and then the tooling that we're building. for it. Because I mean, sometimes we tend to, because of all this like more technological background and how exciting it is to be building a new frontier, is that we want to use the technology and create as many technologies as we can. And how many times have we seen protocols that they build a lot of super cool technology that nobody uses it for anything, because we don't think about the use case that we're trying to solve. And I think that is the beauty of what is going on in Argentina in a way. No, one of the framings that we did from the beginning was, hey, there's no stablecoin, there's no tools for for accessing financial solutions, there's no loans, no mortgages, there's no access to investment. How do we fix it? How do we fund 100 startups, and we coordinate all of them and we help make them work together? Because of those 100 funded startups, one, two will work, and they will solve the problem that we have locally and hopefully as a continent later on. And that way of structuring the thought process help us, or is helping us, in better said, to build solutions that that are tackling actual problems that will therefore include a broader audience, include the future users of that, and it will allow the whole company or the whole protocol to actually succeed over time. I believe it is a beautiful approach. And I always come to the same argument, but like, since we are a very young industry, we are very much focused on what we love, and we're very much focused on like the blockchain idea. And then we talk about CK, and we talk about T's, and we do FHE, and we bring all these very complicated acronyms to the scene, when the actual focus needs to start shifting towards what are we useful for, and what are we here to fix, what are we. And I think it is the beauty that we're also seeing here is like, the way like Argentina, for example, when it comes to like taxes. There's just a lot of taxes. I remember there was a study by the World Bank years ago that said like, if you want to pay all the taxes in Argentina, you need to pay 103% of all of your earnings, which is mental. It doesn't make any sense. And then we were like, this is actually a problem. We're like coordinating everything that is being built as a structure, or we can actually aim to either go for that and change the whole legal structure of the country, or we can create a special economic zone, or a digital special economic zone that allows us to that allows us to build a new structure, or like a new system within the system, which I think it is the beauty of all the work that we're doing, like either from Zoo side, from the Mu, or from City or Crecimiento. In a way, pop-up cities are, and using a little bit of like one of our terms, if countries are the layer one, the layer two that we're building layer twos for like governance, and we're building different structures that allow people to connect in a different way within an existing ecosystem. Or as is happening in our industry as well, we need to get better at the interoperability of it and allow for more people who right now don't belong to those layer twos or to those pop-up cities to be part of it. Because otherwise, and I think it comes a lot to the message and to the way we translate what we do in a way that is less technologically focused and more solving a problem or solving something for someone else.
Simon, this is good. No, go for it, son.
No, I really agree with what Simon mentioned, especially on the wording that we use, because we create so many words in this industry, but at the end of the day, it's actually the same thing. Like when I was talking with the officials in during the World Expo community officials, like basically like there's gonna be 160 countries gonna be in the World Expo presenting themselves. So I was talking to a few of them, like got connected to a few of them. They were asking, because we were one of the official projects that present in the World Expo, presenting blockchain. I mean, we're the only one presenting blockchain, and we want to talk about Popup City. And when I was talking with them, and they were literally like, "What is Popup City? Is that like a pop-up event or something?" I was like, "Yeah, it's hard to explain. It's like a hacker house. It's like a summer camp. It's like a this and that." So at the end of the day, I just told them, you can imagine it's a long-term co-living, co-working experience for startups, but also like exploring interesting concepts such as blockchain, running a government using blockchain, because there are a lot of case studies around the world that's fragmented. But for example, in Argentina, right now they're using Cork ID and ZK identity for the citizen. And then For example, Elon Musk, he is exploring the possibility of using blockchain to trace government spending, right? And also, like I think in Spain, people use blockchain to do on-chain voting for the government voting, and all these kind of and in Singapore they have like other use cases already. Like all these use cases you can actually see around the world, but it's very fragmented. So one of the way that we communicate with the officials and also like the people outside blockchain is that we are creating this, I won't say like a package, but we're creating this vision of how can we use all different kind of tools to, for example, like trace government spending, to go on-chain voting, to protect your um, credential, and many other things that could lead us to the future, like what Veronica was mentioning, the decentralized future, but also like the minimized trust kind of future. And I think there are quite a lot of communities and also people quite interested in that. But the main problem is, that the people who build the tools are usually like software engineers or startups, but people who are using those tools are usually like nations or large enterprises or like local governments, and that's the kind of conversation that it's really hard for the startups to begin. It's hard for them to go to the like local government and say, hey, use my tool. Like they're not gonna really care about you. So I think that's why like Pulp City action matters. So we bring so-called enough hype or enough attention from globally, but also locally, and then introducing innovation solutions, inviting the local regulators, local universities, local institutions to come and learn about, like, check this out. Because one thing I really find, it's actually a very small thing. One thing I really notice is that in Chinese we have a saying called 外来的和尚好念经, which means if you are a foreign monk, it's easier for you to sell your religion, which means that if you come from abroad, it's much easier for the local officials to believe you and actually work with you. But if you're from like locally, it's really hard for you to go climb that ladder to actually reach the decision makers. For example, that's exactly what happened, like I think a few months ago in Argentina, right? Milei actually worked with this crypto team overseas, like from Singapore or Southeast Asia, instead of working with actually the blockchain OGs located like from Argentina, all because it's much easier to build that trust on the global stage. And yeah, so I really believe that as global communities, bringing the right people, bringing the right people, connecting them to the right people locally, and creating solutions and doing like partnerships is actually quite impactful and quite interesting.
It's also,
I just want to say how like hugely significant that is, right? Like when you talk about special economic zones, like up until now, special economic zones have absolutely nothing to do with crypto. But the last report by the UN said that there was like 5,500 special economic zones across the world. That was like 5 years ago. There's got to be, I don't know, multiples of that now. And, like some of them have been hugely successful, and most of them have been in China. It's been like a core pillar of their economic strategy. And when you look at SECs, they're really a way for governments to supercharge innovation in their economy. And what you guys are doing, like the Mu with the special economic zones you're working with, and Crecimiento in Argentina, you're showing governments that crypto and Web3 can supercharge our SECs. So this is like rocket fuel for economy. And when you start to network them together, I just think it's incredibly exciting. So yeah, hugely exciting. Do you guys see that this is where governments and nation states start to actually take permissionlessness and censorship resistant and things like Ethereum seriously? And do you see where this is maybe where nations start to actually adopt Ethereum?
I think if you think about like from the nation official like perspective, why should I adopt blockchain, right? What's the benefit I adopt this? I think a few things, obviously, like what Elon Musk is trying to do is basically like clarity on spending, and like what Crecimiento and Argentina is working on, the ZK identity, so privacy protective of your the identity of the personal information of your citizens. And also one of the main thing I slowly realized, like what people are actually looking for in a special economic zone for governments, it's actually quite easy to accept or to release a special economic zone kind of thing. It's basically a test field, right? In give you a small region to test out and try out your stuff. What they're actually looking for is basically, you can imagine it's like a bait, right? It's like a fish bait. The government allow you to do this test field, and then what they're expecting is oversee investment and oversee projects coming. I mean, oversee investment and local community going there to create innovation, so that they themselves don't need to, do like heavy lifting on the innovation, not on the financial support side. So I think understanding that perspective, like basically it's a business model, right? They give you a land, they give you this open opportunity for innovation, and then what you need to bring as global community is oversee investment or oversee opportunities or oversee like big speakers, decision makers come here and then gather enough amount of like talents locally. I mean, I'm literally describing Crecimiento right now for some reason, and then gather like local communities coming to this like special economic zone to create innovation solutions for local region, maybe not even local region. For example, when we talk with Japan, a lot of people were expecting like Japan is old, slow, and very conservative, but in reality, like there's a huge shift on the nation's perspective to crypto, and also like their support for startups. So what they're right now looking for is, they're hoping that there could be more like overseas institutions coming to Japan to invest, to relocate. At the same time, they're trying to push like local Japanese startups to grab this kind of opportunity and then build solutions not only for Japan but also for the grander like Asia Pacific and global
Yeah.
scale. I
Yeah.
think
And Veronica, you guys, I mean, Switzerland is arguably maybe one of the most innovative countries in the world. They've a huge history of innovation. And then you guys are building this a kind of accelerator for innovation. Do you have any view on how the Swiss government regards you? Do you have much of an interaction with them, or is it just like you're just running with it yourselves?
No, so there are already a number of people involved with the project that have a lot more experience than I do myself, not just with Switzerland, but even with Swiss government. One person, for example, Alexi Roussis from NIM, I know he has spent quite a bit of time working through the different canton governmental structures to pass through privacy regulation. So personally, I'm excited for May to spend a lot of time with people that are very involved with it. So I can't speak to what the current impression is of the project as a whole from the government as a whole. My understanding of this canton decentralized system is that it really will be dependent on these local canton level connections, and we could say we ultimately want to be working with cantons, and who knows, crypto canton, don't quote me on that I don't but there's, I think, pathways towards working ideally with the existing system, bringing in, it's already quite crypto friendly, right? And we have Ethereum history and presence there, so it's, if I had to guess, it's probably there's hope or optimism for the individuals that hear about the project, but we're early enough that I hope that we don't have any strong impression yet, so that we can define that as we have the different interested parties coming together to define this together. But all that being said, again, we recently just published there's a few interviews. So one with Alexi, one with like Amir Taki, for example. I'm sure different individuals involved with the collective group or project of Zuitzerland probably have their own different impressions as well from different levels of the government. But I guess that's how all these projects are likely to be, especially in early stages. But I've been advocating for us defining as little as possible before May, just trying to really attract all of the people that are interested in these projects that are relevant, not just on a heavy Swiss and governance side, but also the technologists, the scientists, the builders, the students, where we have So thank you to the EF, who's helping us sponsor a number of scholars, and we're also seeking other support so we can lower the barrier to entry. To go back to, I guess, one of the other questions, is this just for like wealthy digital crypto nomads or so? I think all of our projects do everything we can to make it not that case, and do what we can to really lower barriers to entry. So all that to say, we're trying to bring in people that are very relevant to help build this, to then try to define these together. We also will have some presence from existing people within the Swiss government too, so that before we ever define, this is our governance structure, this is the land we're looking for, this is the project, as we're defining, at least we are working with with people at every level of the environment, the systems that are relevant, to make sure that we do it in a long-term resilient way.
That's awesome. And I think you've sort of also inadvertently answered one of the questions that came in. I think this one came in via YouTube from Tricky Actant, who said, as a researcher, I'm curious if you plan to create a more popular culture for a broader audience, something people can relate on combining with soft power. And like Tricky, I hope that, what Veronica was just saying sort of answers your question. Because I think everyone here is trying to make it as accessible as possible. So just want to underline that. So I'm curious.
I just want to quickly respond to that,
or
with just like a quick anecdote. I first left the US with the support of a Fulbright grant, which is with the US State Department. And at the time, I intended on returning to the US, as we agreed when accepting it. But I remember during the orientation for this from the State Department, they told us literally, you are the soft power of America. Go out and, go into these schools and educate. And I mean, I don't think that's the only reason that all of our projects should and do have educational initiatives. But even in Montenegro, some of us were starting some more educational elements. And I do think that, if you reference soft power, there's the media entertainment side, which maybe others will talk about, I don't know, but definitely on an educational element, I think that we could go further into it. But I think if we have permanent projects, especially, you should start by building educational facilities. And as our global network is disseminated around the world, and we continue to have these ephemeral conferences and pop-ups, etc., the educational element is probably the strongest soft power element of the network state movement.
So I'm curious what you guys think are, based on the past few years and the various pop-up villages and everything else. There's been thousands of different experiments and initiatives. What are some of the coolest things that have emerged that you've seen? Like, what are some of your favorite highlights?
I mean, maybe I can tap on a few, but okay. So like one of the things that I wanted to mention is, because before, we're mentioning the special economic zones, and I think the special economic zones are very cool, using technical language always, but digital special economic zones make much more sense, to me, at least from a non-lawyer point of view, because of the sense of scalability. At the end of the day, to me, the easiest way to understand special economic zones is more favorable conditions for innovation. Depending how you use it, but at least the ones that we focus on. And being an industry that is fully digital, with tech stack being built, with on-chain solutions being developed, this can actually allow for massive scalability of the conditions of a special economic zone. So actually pushing for governments to accept this sort of conditions can actually bring a lot of value to the ecosystem, because obviously when we're trying to push something like a digital special economic zone, we're not alone. That's the coolest part of all, is like you're turning around and you have actual protocols and companies who actually are willing to push these sort of solutions, and they are part of the business case that will be pushing the development of the conditions of that special economic zone. So I think it's a fascinating idea around the pop-ups and network states that we need to continue pushing. Talking about cool initiatives that happened during one of the pop-ups, we had, Sun can actually expand on this a lot too, but like we had Morphe, which was a token during one of the first pop-up that we did, and I actually allowed to onboard a lot of restaurants, because one Morphe represented 1 meal. and you could actually exchange. And that allowed us to onboard more than 28 restaurants all around, all near by the hub that we have, by a left hub in Buenos Aires. And that actually allowed for a more real use case of what crypto is for, no? And then obviously people started playing around with the token, and they were like futures trading for everything. So like it actually, I mean, permissionless innovation, no? But I think that was actually a very, very
That's a
cool use
really
case
cool
that
shout
we
out.
saw recently.
Just because like somebody mentioned that on the feed, Chance T mentioned it on YouTube. They said Morphe community currency, which was at the first LF, was forked and brought to Infinita City in Honduras. And another one was Zoo Village, Georgia's application forked for Zuitzerland. So again, like that's a great example, right there, of how like innovation in one pop-up village has this kind of mycelial effect where it supports innovation in other pop-up cities, and you can see where these like network effects start to grow. So that's really, really cool. Timur, what about you?
Sorry, go for it.
Yeah. So plus one to that. And I think, okay, so some of the coolest things, first of all, it's just the things getting built and incubated and ideated. I think Cressy is like an absolutely incredible example. It's just been incredible to watch that. And it's insane to think it's less than a year old, or it's just the idea was born at ETH Denver 12 and a half months ago, which is wild. We've had things like Zupass and Cursive. So thinking about like actual self-sovereign identity products, again, an idea that's been researched a lot, and then to see it actually in action, IRL is pretty cool. So see people being able to connect in ways that preserve their identity, preserve their privacy. And so Zupass is a team that we supported for a while, and then actually their products started to get used by DevCon and DevConnect. So that was just incredible to see. There was a community currency experiment called Edges, which we did with Radical Exchange, which was kind of funny because it had the same permissionless innovation that Simon talked about, of like people. So the community currency was called Edges, and then it took about a week for someone to set up Cutting Edge Capital for one of the hackathon projects, which was like a fund that was investing in people and edges and things like that. So really cool to see what that unlocked in the community, and also a cool example of something that was incubated at one pop-up village called Edge Esmeralda, which is the one we're doing with the new city in California, and then kind of improved upon and showcased in Thailand as well about 6 months later. And then actually shout out to Propel, which is a product that MetaMask created at Edge City Lana in Thailand. We had Dan Finlay and the MetaMask stunts team, which I guess is kind of like the internal R&D team, come and just do a bunch of embedded experiments. And this is a cool example of how even at big established companies, they can send teams into these environments and use them as a way to experiment with new ideas that they have. And they have 1,000 kind of ready, willing, and able test case subjects to try out what they're doing and give feedback and etc. So Dan was just like an amazing addition and had so many cool ideas and had great things to say about his experience. And then the last thing I'll say, just like cool stuff, that the reason we do this emergent format and we organize very little of the programming ourselves is because so many amazing things bubble up from the community. So last year in California, we kind of spontaneously had someone come and build an entire set of like A-frame buildings made out of solar panels that they then used to power the closing party that we held in the woods. And it was so wild because this was just like, we had nothing to do with it. I mean, once we heard about the idea, we kind of kept the momentum going. But it was like an attendee who had the idea, who did the building. They harnessed 20 of the community members over the course of a week to help on the building. And it was just an incredible example of just like, wow, such like magic can emerge from the community.
There's more really, really interesting questions coming in on the feed, but I think we're running out of time, so I'll just leave it to you guys to actually like engage with people offline if you have time. Right now, what do you think, Francesco? Will we just do a round of closing thoughts just to wrap it up?
Oh yeah,
Does that sound all right?
we
All right,
definitely need a
cool.
part two of this. That's super exciting. I'm hearing hyperlocalism. I think like nurturing local community, and I think people really underestimate how building communities are. And I think Pop-up City are bringing actually not just innovation, but this kind of like essence on the local culture and tradition that you are actually able to make the other side understand, hey, there is innovation happening. So on the government level, on the partners level, and also nurturing from Pop-up City to Pop-up City, because builders are also moving around. And I think this is probably the stronger things that I even saw. I mean, I'm Tremor, like on the proper side was amazing to see the reaction, and also people bringing this innovation to other Pop-up City. It's super interesting, and I feel also people don't get pressured right now in Papa City to build. That's why you have much more a unique and kind of like an authentic like building experience, because you get also feedbacks. So you're not pressured, and you also get feedbacks from the community, and it's a much more authentic way to actually build the products and deploy on the local side. So I'm super excited about that, and we definitely, Simon, we need definitely like I need a part two on this. But let's finish up with some closing thought from everyone here. And Veronica, you wanna start?
Sure. Yeah. I think thank you all so much for this great conversation. Let's keep having these discussions. Let's build this movement. I invite everyone, all of you, and everyone in the that's watching to apply for Zuitzerland. Like I mentioned, we have our upcoming ephemeral pop-up city, but it's really to launch our permanent network states and network society sandbox project. Switzerland really aligns well with, Timur brought up DAC, or defensive accelerationism. That's a philosophy that I think changed my life. I tweeted recently, it turned me from AI doomer to doer, but I think that that's the best way to describe. I think, pre-Zuzulu even, I was in a very doomy space. Now I think that there's so much momentum and opportunity for us to accelerate defensive technology, build this, future that we're talking about. And I do think Switzerland has a lot of potential for an initial permanent node in this larger network. There's existing AI and crypto hubs in Zurich and Zug. There's a lot of amazing local talent, and everything I've mentioned before of it being set up for DIAC. And I think everything that we're trying to do, the existing history, population, and people that are interested, and we need a bunker bunker node of the global network.
100%. And being originally from Zurich, Switzerland, I can definitely attest that the innovation side. And at the same time, like we definitely need the localism around kind of like more innovation apps. And with Simon from Crecimiento, you wanna go next?
Absolutely. Thank you, Franche. Basically, if I were to close it, obviously the pop-up city that we have still has a few very important dates ahead, and we're going to be welcoming all the regulators. We have a conference at the end of the week, the hackathon going on, both URL, IRL, so anybody can participate. Then we have a demo day for the startups, a lot of stuff going on. But I think the coolest part of it all is that the hub where everything is running is permanent and is open for everyone to come. We are trying to make it become the heart of Web3 in LATAM, and we're pushing the hardest that we can to welcome all the builders. We had incredible stories of people coming from Bolivia 48 hours all the way to the hub to actually showcase their projects and be part of the ecosystem that we're building. And obviously huge shout out to all the team from like Santi, Mili, Toby, Chachi, Theo, all the people who actually make part of this movement. That I'm here today, but there could have been any of them doing an incredible job on telling all the story. And you're more than welcome to come from now. Obviously, we're in the part of bringing Argentina on chain. Dev Connect is ahead. We're going to be doing lots of activations every month, welcoming everyone. And yeah, this is gonna be pretty cool.
Nice.
Let's
Simon,
do it.
prep this mate in your hands, because we will need it pre-Def Connect area. There you are. Cool, super exciting. And also send us a bunch of like links for how this month looks like around Buenos Aires. Bunch of people are both. I think both are joining, both Buenos Aires, but also like Cape Town for ICD. So wanna go next, San? Now we are with the Mu. So what's your closing words here?
So yeah, right now we're working on a few things. We for us this year, this first half of the year is highly focused in Japan, the World Expo. So we are going to be presenting blockchain to 1 million people in the World Expo in May. So that's actually quite huge. I think it's going to be the largest visitor in blockchain ever happen. 1 million people actually in person visiting. And so right now what we're working on is we're creating a documentary for Ethereum. We're collecting the voices of like community leaders from all around the world. Right now we already reached out to 20 and a bit more than 20 like ETH community leaders, explaining like why are they in blockchain and what's the blockchain use case over there, especially Ethereum. And also we're inviting speakers. I think I already reached out to the Crecimiento guys, obviously, and then hoping that Consensus could be a part of this to join and speak. And also, basically, we want to. This is the first time ever blockchain is presenting in the World Expo, and so we are lucky that we are the first team in Ethereum ecosystem to present Ethereum in the World Expo, and so we want to make sure that we bring the best of the best speakers, projects in the field to join, to speak, to connect with all the country leaders. For example, like the king of Saudi Arabia is coming. I think also the king from Finland. Yeah, I think from one of the European countries, basically, and a lot of like prime ministers, presidents from different countries are coming at the first two months because it's the opening of the World Expo, and then we are lucky to have like 1 week of booth in this space to present Popup City, to present Ethereum use case, to present the documentary and also the talks. Yeah, like preparing this like for 1 million people was, I never even imagined like 1 million people, like that's huge amount number. But basically it's quite exciting, and we really hope that we can do some good like BD and government development and also like business development to
Yeah, that's huge, man. Good
yeah
luck with that. That's just like such a
yeah
massive
true.
scale. Yeah.
True. So we really hope that we can navigate the conversation of the blockchain use case for government from a centralized and black box kind of side to a bit more decentralized open network kind of a spectrum. So yeah, we need help on this. So hopefully everyone can join.
Super exciting. And every year is getting better. I think like the Tokyo scene for builders. Like we started what 3 years ago for ETH Globals, just for the hackathon, and then like all the DAO cities happens, and it's super exciting, and the ecosystem is super vibrant in Japan right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Timur, you want to go next? HCD, Cape Town, and what's happening around HCD? Some spicy takes here.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so just like a quick philosophical take and then a call to action. So I think in general, we're at a point now in the world where we as individuals and as communities can have way more agency in creating the society and world that we want to live in. And I see Popup Cities as kind of tapping into a very long lineage of experimental communities and societies. I've written about this on my blog. But the high level is basically we have so many high leverage tools. So there are many ways to actually affect this. I think participating in the Popup City movement is one very actionable way. So I would say just like recommend people to attend one. There are plenty, on this call, and there are plenty of others. I think at this point you could probably spend the whole year in this kind of environment if you wanted to, or try your own. Like we want to see hundreds of these experiments, eventually thousands, happening concurrently. It's exciting to see so many other folks here trying, and we will keep, doing our own and demonstrating what they can look like. So if you want to get involved on our end, follow us on Twitter at Join Edge City or on our website, edgecity.live. And yeah, we'll be in Cape Town in 2 weeks. We'll be in California later this year. We have a couple of other really exciting ones. And then we'll definitely be in Argentina at the end of the year with the Cressy folks and many others. So yeah, that's it on our end.
Nice, super exciting. And before we're closing up, Simon, like you want to quickly like give us any like some spicy takes around what Consensus is doing around network state. What are you working on? Because I feel like last time we touched a little bit, but really like 1 minute max.
It's all super secret. So, so no, but no, we are working on a whole ton of stuff, and many of the people who are like everyone who's on this call, we're working with in some capacity. But essentially, like the consensus network state is probably a little different from a lot of the other network states that people may have heard of. Not focusing on actual physical presence, more about like how we can actually give access to all of the great products and platforms and public goods that Consensus has built and that exist in the wider Ethereum ecosystem, and how we can just make it much easier for people to leverage those tools to build their own communities. So we're partnering with a whole bunch of different people to try and network everybody together, and we've got some very, very exciting projects in the pipeline that people will find out about soon. In the meantime, we are exploring the space by doing live streams and conducting various experiments and just getting the word out there. So yeah, this was a really, really interesting conversation. You're totally right, though. We need to have like a part 2, probably a part 3, 4, and 5, and more. But we have another few planned, Francesco, so I'm really looking forward to them as well. I think the next one will be with Justin Drake talking about decentralization in Ethereum, which will likely be interesting, if not a little bit spicy. I can't remember the exact date. It's in a few weeks, but yeah, follow me on Twitter and I'll drop the date. Follow Francesco or Consensus. And yeah, as things emerge and from the Consensus network state, I'll be sure to update everybody. But there will be some very big things in the next few months.
Excited. Thanks, Simon. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone that was coordinating this this kind of video space. I think this is bringing a lot of engagement, a lot of like comments that we wish like we could actually like address right now. But the stream will stay up, recording will stay up. We'll send a bunch of links also post streams. So thanks, everyone, and enjoy your day, night, and see you in the next Popup City and next. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks so much. It's been fantastic.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.